political arena has started experiencing political tremors as the 2027 elections draws closer. One of the major political tremors is the rise of the Gen Z movement, a challenge that President William Ruto seems to be facing. In this edition of Political Cards by our very own Blue Smile Hassan, we examine and analyze the political strategies and calculations that President Ruto is using in his attempt to co-opt or contain this movement, the effectiveness and whether they are bearing fruits.
So activities of the now famous Gen Z movement have continued being a headache to President Ruto's two-term politics. But despite this, President Ruto has been consistent in employing strategies in his attempt to quiet or win over the movement.
Currently, he's a man under siege because he's facing a lot of challenges, and these protests are trying now to bring issues with his legitimacy.
This is the current situation President Ruto finds himself in, grappling with the Gen Z movement, a major litmus test of his leadership. President Ruto, who has been praised by many for his vast political experience of nearly 35 years, is now facing a political wave, perhaps unlike any he has encountered before. Ruto's political skills have been for a long time observed as seemingly top-notch, perhaps the king in the chessboard. Most notably is how he managed to woo his long-time rival Raila Odinga to become an ally and defender. However, with the Gen Z, Ruto appears to be struggling. Analysts speculate that this might be because the Gen Z movement lacks a clearly defined leadership.
You see, many a times in politics, we should identify the leaders, we negotiate with the leaders, because they represent the majority. But in this case, the Gen Z said they are leaderless. So the moment you pinpoint some specific people, they will be labeled as traitors and not part of the leaders, that we are leaderless. But then again, President Ruto made, I think it was a mistake, because he wants to negotiate under his own terms, not under the Gen Z's terms. And that is why the reason he initially said that the Gen Zs should appoint leaders and send those leaders to State House, but they refused. But now when he found out that it is very difficult to engage the Gen Zs in that area, he decided to come to X under his own terms.
Nevertheless, the absence of leadership has not stopped Ruto from trying to either sway the movement to his side or suppress its momentum.
The strategies that he's using is the narrative. He controls the narrative. George Orwell's in The Animal Farm talks about he who controls the narrative controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the narrative. President Ruto currently, he controls the narrative. You see now, it has turned out to be the question of why, not how, the why of the protest. You see, the Gen Zs were protesting for some issues, but now President Ruto has now turned the narrative to how the Gen Zs are protesting. That is why they've been labeled as looters, criminals, and now the question is, how are they conducting these protests? Not why are they protesting?
Now let's rewind a bit to when this movement started. After the protest of June 25th, 2024, under the pressure from the Gen Z, Ruto declined to sign the 2024 finance bill. He dissolved his cabinet and promised to meet many of the demands voiced by the Gen Z, possibly a tactic to win their favor.
President Ruto is playing the playbook of Niccolo Machiavelli, the politics of Niccolo Machiavelli. Appear weak when you are strong, and appear that you are listening to people while in real sense you are not listening to them. So what President Ruto did, the Gen Zs wanted the reshuffling of that, the cabinet to go. Now, in order to cool them down, he bought into that. Okay, I've heard you. Now he was giving these guys and the Gen Z the impression that he's a listening president. While when he came back again and brought similar faces, we later understood that he was not a listening president.
The pressure on President Ruto to do what the Gen Z wants seems to have become a thorny issue for him.
If Ruto listens to the Gen Zs, there will be repercussions. Because some of, like one of the demands of the Gen Zs was this opulence that is in the cabinet. Those guys should be sacked. They are incompetent. But you see, the moment you sack somebody, it brings an opposition, and you lose that support for those people. So he cannot listen to them because he wants to retain that political value that those people are bringing. That is the reason why he cannot listen to the Gen Zs. But then again, some of the things that the Gen Zs are saying, to him, he feels that they cannot be achieved right now.
However, Ruto's strategies to win over the Gen Z appears not to have been in vain. As soon as he aligned himself with Raila Odinga, youths from regions perceived to be Raila's stronghold seemed to calm down. Ruto also appears to be borrowing a political playbook once used by the late President Moi to win over young people in the 1992 elections.
President Moi made sure that he brought the young people, the youths for KANU, youths for Moi, and President Ruto was a student. You see, President Ruto came to this politics when he was picked from UON so that he can be part of that team, youths for KANU. So he wants to use that strategy, and you've seen lately there are some youths who have come up with maybe a movement that they are saying that youths for Ruto. So he is trying to employ that same tactics, and he knows that in order to buy some people, you don't have to buy all people. Just buy one person who is being followed by a magnitude of people, and that is the way you are going to get the support of those other people.
In Ruto's twin strategy of seeking influence among the Gen Z while also trying to silence them, a proposed bill to regulate protests seemed to be one of the government key cards to achieve this.
You see, if you want to take away the right to liberty of the people, you first take away their freedom of expression. You see, rights are indivisible. You take away one, you take away all. You see, if you take away the right to the freedom of expression, that means people cannot, they cannot engage in demonstration. You take away almost all the rights. You get, so rights are indivisible.
Whether Ruto's political cards on the Gen Z will eventually work remains to be seen. But as they say, in politics, nothing is impossible. Blue Ismail Hassan, the political chessboard.